And our sex was fine. It wasn't exciting and new, but it wasn't terrible. I think it was satisfying for both of us. But it became scheduled. We were so busy, and we had kids in and out of our bed all the time, and he worked late all the time. So I finally said, you know what, let's have sex on Wednesdays and Saturdays, because the pressure on me all the time to have sex with you is just overwhelming to me. I hate feeling like I can't get into bed and be comfortable because you're going to expect me to have sex with you. So let's just put it on the calendar. It's every Wednesday and Saturday. And I thought that was really generous of me, 2 nights a week. And then I lowered it to one. Then it became Saturday nights only. But one thing I did always used to say to him was, it's very hard. I'm exhausted because you don't help me enough with the kids. You don't help me with the housework. So I just want to be untouched when I get into bed at night. I'm tired. I've had kids hanging off with me all day, and I want to be left alone. And if you could help pick up the slack, I'd probably be much more excited. And so I think there are couples who realize that the marriage and the parenting has to be a partnership. And I think that those couples are able to overcome the difficulties of staying, sexually connected. Whereas in my marriage, we were not talking about it enough. I knew it was a problem, and I kept saying, I need help, but it didn't register. I didn't say it in the ways that he could hear me. So I think communication, awareness, and genuine partnership probably really, can keep your sex life much happier. I think part of what's hard also, I agree with everything James said about the lack of spontaneity and the schedule and the sort of lack of romance. I think that when sex becomes a chore, it does really transform what sex feels like. And so it had 100% become that for me. I don't know if I didn't feel that I had to have sex, like to keep my husband, happy and satisfied. I don't know if I would have ever had it. Mostly I just wanted to go into, bed and read a book. And then suddenly I was given this chance to be someone else. And part of it, I think, is that because my husband and I met when we were so young, we were 20 years old, we really had grown up together. And I think that we became so set in our pattern and our routines that I was very shy about ever trying on any kind of persona that was not something I had exhibited in the past 27 years together.
Yeah.
So that was really a problem for me. Now, when I was suddenly 47 and single, I realized I could be whoever I wanted to be. I wasn't shy at all. I felt it was almost like acting. It was like, okay, I'm going to be wild and free with somebody, and I'm going to see how it feels. And I realized that without having any expectations of myself or other people having expectations of me, I truly blossomed. I found I didn't know that I had such a strong sex drive. I didn't know that I loved having sex, and I did. So I think that was the gift, was that I got to have a totally fresh partners, and I got to be fresh myself. I got to be who I wanted to be without anyone expecting anything of me.
That's it. But when I've been ghosted, I've been like, I had 6 dates with a guy, and then he just disappeared for 6 months, and then popped up again and was like, "Hi, how you going?" I'm like, "What happened? Why did you disappear for 6 months?" So it's as easy. I think there's pluses and minuses of how easy online dating is. It's so quick. I once connected with a guy, I think it was like 5 or 6 o'clock, and I said, "Oh, I'm coming to Clapham." He said, "I'll meet you at a pub at 9." We met at the pub, and at 11 o'clock he was at my house, and we were having sex. Like, really quick. It's really instantaneous. And then he left at 2, and I never saw him again. So, it is like fast food. It's literally like Deliveroo. And it was glorious, and we very much understood what was going on. He was 31 and incredibly good looking, and had a lovely time. But that was in the summer after I separated, so I was doing quite reckless things in a safe manner, everyone, before you get concerned. But it was consensual and all that sort of thing. But there's some kind of glorious deliciousness of that as well, like, because I haven't had that before. And again, it's never when my children are around, and it's just about me being an adult making fairly silly choices.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's about being desired again. Like, the love obviously had gone out of my relationship, and he obviously didn't find me attractive. So to have young men fancy me is a tonic. It's absolutely, it's the elixir of life. So I'm quite happy about that. But I feel really satisfied in all my other aspects of my life, in terms of my career and my house and my children and all that sort of thing. So my priorities for sex and men are very, very different. to what they were when I was 19, when I was looking for love and potential life partner. Now I just don't want a life partner, thank you very much.
And
Want a
do you think
Friday
you
night
ever,
one.
well, do you think you ever will, or do you think that's part of the kind of luxury of having, had a family and moved on now, and to be able to say, well, I don't need one person to commit to. I can live my life in this way for as long as I choose now. I mean, that's part of modern relationships, is it?
Yeah, I guess I haven't met anyone that's made me think that way. And I think there's a safety in that. And I think I've made decisions about dating younger men because of that, because there's no
Yeah.
chance of me kind of being really fully, because they're a bit unreliable. But I'm like, oh, you're
Yes.
cute, and
Yeah.
I'll see you
Yeah.
Friday night. But I think I've done it in a very protective way because I'm very, very scared of being hurt. And I'm
Mm.
not afraid to say that. I'm still healing from that. I think that's going
Mm.
to take a long time. But there's nothing wrong having little flights of fancy along the way. But yeah, I think the thought of having a proper relationship like that completely terrifies me.
Mm.
And so this is quite satisfying in a very superficial way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm having fun, and I don't, I talked to my therapist about this, and she said, well, no, this is okay for this time because you don't want anything sort of deep and committed
Mm.
because there's a massive risk to
Mm.
being that vulnerable with someone.
Yeah. And you're still only a couple of years in, aren't you? So it's still quite new still from your perspective, I guess,
Yeah,
isn't it, as well? Yeah.
yeah.
People come to us divorcing, saying that a big issue is the sex in the relationship. So, from your perspective, in terms of what you hear, what are the most common problems that couples in a long-term relationship have around sex?
Yeah, I think the number one problem that I see in my office would be desire discrepancy, where one partner is much more interested
Yeah.
in sex than the other. And so there's mismatched libido. Now, within that, there can be a number of factors beyond that. Very often, there is no longer an emotional intimacy in the relationship. Very often, there isn't trust in the relationship. Sometimes there's always been a sexual problem in the relationship that's never been addressed that diminishes the value and the motivation to have sex. So I think there's a lot of issues that sort of culminate, especially in long term relationships, in a lack of interest in sex and just being overwhelmed by everything else that we have to deal with in our lives, being parents, managing the household, our jobs. We really